do we mean by a pop culture phenomenon? Well, we could talk about Pokemania in the 90s, where the Pokemon anime, games on the Game Boy, as well as the card game took over the world, resulting the Pokemon movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, which had a theatrical release. Doesn't that sound a little too familiar, guys? Or how about the wrestling boom in the late 90s, where you could see famous wrestlers like Stone Cold and The Rock appear on UK TV shows like The Weakest Link and on prime-time talk shows? Or even the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the early 90s, which again, just like Pokemon, in a few years' time, due to insane popularity, resulted in it having its own movie, which again had its theatrical release. And I would argue that past few years, Demon Slayer is the modern-day anime phenomenon that has taken the world by storm. Just look at the box office records the Demon Slayer movie has broken in Japan alone. It's the highest-grossing film of all time, with a staggering 40 billion yen, beating classics like Spirited Away. It was the first non-Hollywood or non-American film to top the yearly box office worldwide. This hasn't happened since literally the beginning of cinema. It is number 2 in the States and the second highest grossing anime film of all time, second to only the first Pokemon film, Mewtwo Strikes Back, which again was released at the peak of Pokemania. If you want manga stats as well, Demon Slayer obliterated the record of manga sales in 2020 with an insane 82 million copies. So these are just a few stats to make you understand what a juggernaut of a series this is. And mind you, we were in a pandemic the past few years, so to be able to pull such numbers in the box office and manga sales is a feat in itself. So the past few years belong to Demon Slayer, and the reason for this is episode 19 of season 1. This episode for me is the turning point. This was the episode that captured this series into the phenomenon we see today. The animation, the music with the choir at the beginning where we see both Tanjiro and Nezuko suffer at the hands of the threats from Rui. But at the end of the day, we hear the tune of Kamado Tanjiro no Uta, which only has 60 million views on YouTube. This iconic tune played, and like this song, this epitomizes Demon Slayer perfectly, as it starts off slow but then makes you feel the warmth on how epic it is. The animation and music is top-notch, arguably the best in the business, and it is a major factor on why this episode boomed as much as it did. Just go to the search bar on YouTube and write down episode 19 of Demon Slayer and see the millions of views each of these reactors are getting. It's easily the episode with the most reactions and the most views in probably the history of YouTube. But what I'm trying to get at, it's not just the animation. The story going into this episode made the hype at the end of the episode so much more satisfying. Tanjiro and Rui are complete opposites of one another. Tanjiro is compassionate and will sacrifice everything for his sister and family, as we see in this very episode where he was willing to get killed if he managed to kill Rui. Whilst Rui is the complete opposite. He has no compassion. He will hurt his family members for even speaking their mind, as we saw with his sister when she explained to him that he already has an older sister when he tried to recruit Nezuko. He immediately attacks her, slicing her head off. The guy is an abuser and an oppressor, whilst Tanjiro is a protector and a provider. But the thing is, Rui is one of the 12 moons of Musa. Demon that Tanjiro has never fought before, and we can see this throughout this episode and in the previous episode that he's totally outclassed by Rui in battle. Not to mention that Tanjiro is fighting him with a broken sword, so the stakes and the situation is dire, as Rui holds Nezuko hostage and threatens to make her his little sister. And as I just described, that is the worst case scenario for Nezuko, considering how much of an abuser Rui is. You want Tanjiro to win, you want him to have that epic moment. Tanjiro reminds me so much of Kid Gohan back in Dragon Ball Z. He went through so much before his big epic moment against Cell in the Android Saga. He fought against the Saiyans in the Saiyan arc, as well as Frieza's minions and Frieza himself in the Namek arc, on top of all the training he has been doing so far. But he never truly had his moment. Yes, he had glimpses of potential, but it would always be Goku, or in some rare occasions Vegeta or Piccolo having their moments. Same with Tanjiro in the first season of Demon Slayer. We saw Zenitsu having a moment earlier on when he beat the spider demon, as well as Inosuke showing insane strength and bravery against Rui's dad. And don't get me wrong, Tanjiro did have his moments as well, but it was never a big game-breaking moment for the character. Considering he is the main character of a big shonen series, he didn't have his Gohan Super Saiyan 2 or Luffy Gear 2 moment, shall I say, so far. And I know it's earlier on in this series, but shonen anime has changed now. The old school long-running shonens are a rare breed nowadays. As people have shorter attention spans, everything needs to be instant now. So you would expect something from the main character. And boy, did they deliver in this episode. Another big factor on why this episode blew up is the theme of family. You see the flashback with Tanjiro, Nezuko and their parents in the harsh winter of Japan, with Tanjiro's dad doing the fire dance in the cold winter. But you see them all together as a family. This flashback has that warmth and coziness of being with your friends and family in the harsh winter months. That's the vibe you feel when watching that particular moment of the episode. The theme of family is at the heart of the battle with Tanjiro and Rui, with Rui trying to force Nezuko into becoming his sister and Tanjiro trying to save Nezuko from Rui. This could also be a deeper meaning, as Rui is a demon directly under Muzan, as he is one of the 12 moons of Muzan. As he is the one trying to recruit Nezuko and Tanjiro trying to save her is similar to how Tanjiro is also trying to save Nezuko from becoming a full-fledged evil demon and turn her back into a human. Nezuko is the only family Tanjiro has left. Muzan has already killed all his little brothers and sisters and his mum, so she is all he has left. And seeing another character trying to take her away from him makes us root for Tanjiro to have that big epic moment. You would rather have someone try and kill Nezuko rather than take her away and have her be an enemy against Tanjiro. For Tanjiro's sake, as seeing all the harsh training he's been through and losing all of his family members and the amount of times he got chased because of Nezuko as well, he is going through this journey for Nezuko. To have her be with Rui and potentially forced to fight against him would be too heartbreaking and cruel to watch. As epic as it would be to see, I feel Tanjiro would rather die than have to face Nezuko in a fight. But I feel even if Nezuko becomes Rui's sister, she would still find a way to go back to Tanjiro, as we see both of the parents of Nezuko and Tanjiro speak to them, which gave them that boost. That's something all of us can relate to. Whenever we are in a struggle, we always go back to our parents for advice, which is what they did here. That's what I mean by warmth and coziness, because this is what it is. It's the warmth of family bond, and that eventually beats Rui, which is almost tragic if you think about it, as the bond between Tanjiro and Nezuko, with their combined strength of Nezuko's blood demon arts, exploding blood, and Tanjiro's Hinokami Kagura being the one to defeat Rui, as Rui stands alone with no family next to him to support him through this fight. That was the underlying message. If you are compassionate and care for people, you will have friends and family that will push you through struggle. However, if you are cruel and abusive like how Rui was, you will have no one by your side. You will be alone in your struggle, as Rui found out. This is what we were all waiting for, that big badass moment from Tanjiro, and everything I explained with the theme of family, Rui being his complete opposite, and the motivation of protecting Nezuko even if it costs him his life, is what made the payoff at the end so satisfying and internet breaking. This was his moment, and seeing him be all badass and fearless by slicing all the blood threads was epic. Along with the music, oh my god, it was beautiful. Combining both Nezuko's exploding blood and Tanjiro's Hinokami Kagura was like seeing a modern day version of Goku and Gohan's father-son Kamehameha. And like Gohan back then, this was his moment. That was when he became the guy for that series. Just like how Tanjiro became the guy of shonen anime with this moment in killing Rui. This episode will be talked about for years to come. In 20, 30 years from now, we will be talking about the greatness of this episode and how massive it was at the time. The way Pokemania is remembered back in the 90s, Demon Slayer will be remembered for these years of animation greatness in pop culture history.